we're going to take an overview of Hinduism. And of course, all these religions are filtered through these lenses. But I do my best to try to relate these traditions as best I can from their own point of view. And so, to begin, we will see with many of our religions, they're not called themselves by the names we call them. And that is true of what we call Hinduism, which some will argue is not even exactly a distinct religion, but a multitude of countless tribal traditions and a variety of relatively less organized religious practices across the South Asian continent. And so when we look at Hinduism through the lenses of people who believe in that religion, we'll note that it is called, first of all, the Sanatana Dharma, or we can translate that roughly as the eternal reality. At least that's the best I can do with that term. So as we begin our foray into the Indian family of religions, we'll see three notable distinct forms of the religion. One will focus on the light deities of the ancient Aryan peoples, and I'll go into that controversial topic again in a moment. The other will look at the ascetic practices, especially as evinced in the Jain and Shiva traditions. And finally, the emptiness traditions of Buddhism that will travel all the way to Japan, and we'll see the reasons why it does and perhaps why the others do not. So among these three traditions, we can see some things that all the Indian religions share in common, and a belief, even a certainty from their point of view, in rebirth, punarjanma, or reincarnation as we know it in English, and then they all believe in karma theory, that basically we get the effects of our actions. So karma literally just means action. Also, all three we can say are immanental. They look to human beings, in the case of Buddhism, or gods that are actually part of our world. In fact, we're all in Vishnu's dream, as we shall see. So God is not outside our world, but we are, if you will, in God somehow. And we can definitely see with all three they're very inclusive. In fact, they include you in their religion, even if you don't want to be a Buddhist, a Hindu, or a Jain. So again, around 1800 to the year 2000, before the Common Era, we see these people called the Kurgan tribes people, named after a town in Russia where roughly they originated approximately that time and perfected that nuclear weapon of the second millennium, the chariot. And along with newfangled iron smelting, they were rather invincible. We have historical records, even on the clay tablets of Babylon itself. Many Indian scholars reject this idea, and the reason for so many cognate terms from Sanskrit to Greek to Latin is simply peaceful trade. But as I look at the world and look at all the English speakers that I have as students and myself, I can see that actually it's military conquest that spreads religion and language and philosophy. So we can see again on this image the Aryan tribes people emerging from the Black and Caspian Sea area and then conquering the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, just the opposite of what Hitler thought. So these kind of Armenian peoples, if you will, roughly from that area, conquer from Iran, Aryan, to Ireland, Aryaland, and establish their social system with priests, then warriors, and then finally merchants at the top, and then everyone else at the bottom. So we can call it the caste system, but that is a Portuguese term, casta, or rank. And the term in Sanskrit is, believe it or not, varna ashrama, or the color code. These Aryans were perhaps more lightly complected than the people they invaded. However, the people they invaded in Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley civilization were unique and far older, and of course, they were civilized, unlike these Kurgan types. So we can definitely say, with the instance of the Beaker people we looked at last time, those people who possibly built Stonehenge, and certainly made their distinctive beakerware, that really the people of West and Northwest Europe lost their original culture to this vast invasion of these peoples from Central Asia. And there won't be one quite that big until the Mongols and, of course, the dread British. As for more evidence of what happened to the Indus Valley civilization at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, we do have some evidence from the Vedas, the ancient sacred text of Hinduism, that points to the devastation of Haryupiya and the subjugation of the lowly slave or dasa class. But the people of Harappa were certainly advanced. We see evidence of indoor plumbing in their cities, and their culture goes back to at least 2900 before the Common Era. So this is one of our 4 seats of ancient civilization, and much that happened by way of yoga as well, which is also shared by each of these 3 traditions. All of this likely started with that civilization. We can see even in the cylinder seals we find there what is perhaps Shiva himself, the Lord of Beasts, surrounded by beasts at least, and seated in a yoga posture, the lotus posture as we know it. And so this is pre-axial age material, and certainly, I think, influenced by the warm monsoon climate. Among the yoga traditions, we see also a distinct view of the body as comprised of 7 energy centers or chakras, wheels of energy with an endocrine gland associated with each chakra. So we can see out of our 3rd eye and we speak with our voice. Those are 2 of the 7. When we reincarnate, these chakra energy cycles will leave this body, and out the top chakra, the crown chakra, the 1,000-petaled lotus as it's called, then we will begin our journey looking for a next lifetime. And so for Indians, yoga is not merely a health practice, although it is part and parcel of the Ayurvedic or life sciences tradition of Indian medicine. It is also part of a spiritual quest. And one thing to note very clearly is the vivid imagery we'll find in the Hindu traditions. I can think of no tradition with greater use of vivid imagery, dancing, and the like. I like to often say Hinduism is the religion of play. And it does also have a positive regard for healthy desire. It's important, before going further, to speak briefly about the Vedas. These are the sacred pre-axial age texts of Hinduism. And in these we see the henotheistic pantheon we saw with the Greeks and the like. It really helps to crack open words by way of etymologies. So if we look at Veda, we actually have this term in English, video, I see. And the Vedas are sacred visions, uncreated by humans. Hindus believe this along with Muslims in the Quran, that these see these divine realms, divine beings, and hence the root is vid, to see. And so even watching this video, we can see truth, I hope, coming through. So it's primarily a visual orientation we find in Hinduism. The prophets of Israel, we'll find, are seized by the breath of God, and then they are forced to speak what they hear. We can see as well in the Vedas the discussion of soma, the plant, possibly a mushroom, Amanita muscaria, but this is in dispute, that took these seers to see visions of the heavens, such as this. We can see in the Vedas as well the influence of the monsoon culture, as we note that the sky father, Dyaus-Pitar, of these Kurgan tribes people, is replaced in importance by Indra, the storm god, which makes sense in monsoon stormy India. And like all pre-axial age cultures, we don't just find cartoony things. In the Vedas, we have a discussion of the creation of the universe as, well, created neither from non-existence nor existence. Whence did it come? And hence, we can see agnostic notes in pre-axial age religious literature like those we see in the Vedas. Among the myths in the Vedas, we can see a sociological legitimation of the social system we find true in Hindu tradition. This, again, caste system. And so we're told in the myth of Prajapati that the reason for the castes are that Prajapati was lonely in the universe and dissolved his own body into the universe And from his mouth came the Brahman priests, his mighty arms, the warriors, his thighs, the merchants. Finally, Prajapati's feet became the Shudras, the servants. And the untouchables are, alas, outside the system. So literally, outcast. After the period of the Vedas, we see Hinduism's own turn to the axial age of the pan-ethnic empires and its universalizing themes. We see a body of literature called the Upanishad, which means literally to sit up near a guru. So here we see in Indian tradition historical thinkers with their own peculiar philosophies, not just myths uttered by the seers. Now we have philosophical reflections on deeper issues. Just like we saw with Socrates ending the Greek period of pre-axial age religion, now we see the same phenomenon emerging in Hinduism, and the Upanishad will speak of a transcendent world spirit, Brahman, and we are all instances of that as individual Atman. So we can say both these words have a connection to the word breath, which we can translate again into the English spirit, and find a connection in these ideas from Greece really to India in many ways. Associated with this period of the Upanishad is then the emergence in the axial age of figures like the Buddha in India, and we'll see the Buddha and Mahavira of the Jain tradition. Those are two traditions rejecting the social system of the caste, and also the traditionally somewhat less than equal, let's say, role for women in religion. And so just as we saw with Socrates, the Buddha likewise tended to downplay the importance of the Hindu gods, and then to note that really the gods have their own problems. We should worry about our own problems, and the gods can't save us. This is one big break with the traditional Hindu traditions that we'll see with the emergence of Buddhism from out of this Upanishadic period and its turn to monism, or seeing the world as really one sacred reality, not God up there and humans down here obeying that transcendent Father God. We can pretty clearly see some comparisons with the Greek gods and goddesses, and here are just a few, but there is a direct link again with these people from the Black and Caspian Sea area importing their religion and language and so many other things with their vicious conquests. We can see in Hindu tradition also a standard kind of plan for life. I would say Hinduism is the most this worldly friendly of the three Indian religions, because it sees the need for people to be policemen and in the military and serve in politics and the like. And Buddha and Mahavira and Jain tradition, they are going to reject those as really ideal options. And likewise in Hindu tradition we get a great regard for the family. And so these 4 stages of life are meant to be followed by everyone. We're all maybe in class apprentices, and then as we have children and the like, we should get married and find our partner. That is ideal, just as the gods have their goddesses. And also, finally, a Hindu retirement really is a renunciation, living in the woods to prepare for the next reincarnation or rebirth. And so, this is not exactly retirement moving to Florida. And then we can see the renouncer type of person. And this is found more readily in the Jain and Buddhist tradition. Giving up all belongings to pursue a strictly spiritual path, and that usually includes not only vegetarianism, but sometimes veganism, fruitarianism, even breatharianism, believe that or not. So we might ask the question from our culture's perspective, how does a Hindu get saved? What's really going on? In Hindu tradition, these eternal reality traditions, we don't see the idea of sin and willful disobedience to an all-loving God or any kind of recourse to a Satan-like being. Instead, the idea for really, again, all 3 Indian religions is that human beings are in a cycle of ignorance and attachment. And so, driven along by greed, hatred, and ignorance, three poisons as the Buddhists call them, the world moves along in a less than glorious fashion. And as we move from a period of tamas or darkness, then through yoga, meditation, devotion to gods, cultivation of wisdom, these are some of the paths in Hinduism, we can move to rajas, active being in the world, perhaps a supervisor, manager, businessman, and the like, or finally we can shoot towards the sattva essence, the pure, white, clear essence of the holy person cleansed of ignorance. Hinduism also has many creation stories. One of my favorites, really, of all the religions is this story of Vishnu, who is dreaming the universe into existence. We can see that as he dreams, he creates a sprout from his navel of a lotus, and on the lotus is Brahma, the creator god. And then from within Vishnu's dream, we see the command to create the world. And in this universe, we'll see Vishnu also sponsors or is many avatars. We have this term as a common computer phrase now in English, and an avatar is a mask or face someone puts on, if you will, to engage the computer world. It may not be who you think they are as an avatar. And if we think about the movie, the people were actually on the spaceship driving the avatar creatures they were projecting with their mental consciousness. So in this way, Vishnu projects heroes like Krishna and Rama, and so many 10 famous other ones, including one to come in the future, the Kalkin. And so we introduced Vishnu, but really there's more to say. We have really two central traditions in the Hindu religion, and that is the Shiva traditions, Shaiva we call them, and the Vishnu traditions, or Vaishnava as we call them. So as we look at the Vaishnava traditions, as we already said, the cosmic Lord Vishnu is currently dreaming our universe into being as he sleeps. Then we exist. And of course, among the 10 different avatars of Vishnu, 2 stand out as most popular and we might argue relevant. The first of these is Krishna, and of course we can think of the Beatles' famous Hare Krishna mantra. George Harrison was very much a devotee of Krishna. So his name means blue-black, literally, and we can say, like so many of the superheroes from ancient civilizations and on, there was an attempt to kill him at birth. And then, again, like Zeus, he survives miraculously. He is, of course, first of all, beamed into his mother's womb by Lord Vishnu, sending his cosmic consciousness right into Devaki's uterus. And then, as he emerges, it turns out he is unkillable as a child. He might look small, but among the stories of his youth, one day he's chewing on some food and his mother says, "Krishna, don't eat with your mouth open." And Krishna opened his mouth wide, and she could see the entire universe inside. Many might also wonder why they're blue. These Hindu gods are blue because the sky is blue and it's infinite. But we might note only the males are blue. Sorry, ladies, more patriarchy from our period of civilizations. If the truth of religion were based on the performance of miracles alone, I think Krishna gets the nod of the hat. He is most famous for, well, for example, a number of miracles, but among these holding the Govardhana mountain over a village to protect it from demon arrows. So the killing of demons is a major function of Hindu gods, as it was for the Greeks. And also all these Hindu gods and goddesses, just like the Greeks, have consorts. They're male and female partners, representing, well, the male and female aspects of the universe, and these are known then as Shiva and Shakti. Each of these Hindu gods, like the Greeks, also has a consort, and so Krishna marries Radha, but being the ladies' man he is, believe it or not, at one point 16,500 maidens were imprisoned by a demon king. And according to the Hindu traditions of the day, once there's any suspicion that a woman is no longer pure, if you know what I mean, has had sex with someone else. And so, believe it or not, Krishna marries all 16,500 maidens so that they may have status in society, and a husband is what that means. Worshipping your husband like a deity is, well, that's part of the Hindu tradition. I remember in Kathmandu when I was informed of the Worship Your Husband Day, and the performance of this ritual involves drinking holy water from your husband's shoe. Well, I told my now ex-wife, you can probably figure out why, that when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But I said I'd even get a new shoe, but she didn't want to do that for some reason. So when Krishna marries the 16,500 maidens, he gives birth to, again, believe it or not, 180,000 children. Almost as many as live in my home city of Madison. But I would argue the most famous scene we have from Krishna's life occurs on the Battle of Crow Field, Kurukshetra, where Krishna is the charioteer, I should add, of all people, really, but in this case he's the charioteer for Arjuna. Again, note the chariot motif imagery. And Arjuna says to Krishna, well, I can't kill my relative. I'd rather abandon my kingdom than kill my uncles and cousins and the like arrayed in the battlefield against me. And what does Krishna say? Something quite different from what we might hear from Jesus. He says, well, man it up, Arjuna. You are a warrior, a member of the warrior caste. It is your job, your duty, to kill as necessary in the field of battle or wherever else physical power is needed. Then Krishna goes on to reveal his true form to Arjuna right there on the battlefield. I used to look at this image and wonder, what kind of creature is that? As a kid, I thought, surely Godzilla wouldn't stand a chance. And so then Arjuna is able to see Krishna's true form as Vishnu, and the many heads represent the fact for the Vaishnavas that all gods, Jesus, Allah even, are manifestations of the cosmic spiritual presence known as Vishnu. And then we have also another quite famous avatar. I like to call him the more butch avatar, with Krishna, of course, more in tune with his feminine nature. As one student put it to me, why is he so attractive, even though some might say he looked a bit like Boy George. Rama is the butch counterpart, kind of like Hercules, and we can say Krishna's correlate is Dionysus among the Greeks. And then Rama is famous for shooting arrows. He shoots them like a machine gun. And so the big Ramayana epic, known throughout Asia, at least as well as the Iliad and Odyssey are known among European peoples, involves the abduction of Rama's wife Sita by the evil demon lord Ravana. She is stolen away, kidnapped to Sri Lanka, and then Rama. And then, very much like the case in the Iliad, when Menelaus' wife Helen of Troy is abducted by Paris, and Agamemnon sets off to fetch her back for his brother. In this case, Rama is accompanied by Hanuman, the monkey god. Hanuman, very auspicious, and serves as Rama's general, and together they invade Sri Lanka by building, believe it or not, a path made of boulders thrown by Hanuman's monkey army. Rama defeats the demon king and takes his wife back, but since there's doubt that she's still pure, having been held prisoner for so long by Ravana, he abandons her to the forest and himself disappears into the ocean. For those who know the Mario Brothers, the story of Rama and his brother Lakshmana to save the princess from the evil demon king will sound very familiar, and developed as it was by Japanese writers who undoubtedly knew all about the Ramayana. This story lives on today in video games. And so the spoiler is that in the end, both Rama and Krishna are both, in fact, Vishnu. Vishnu is the Lord behind all lords, the God of gods, the King of kings. And Krishna as well is completely God and completely man, but that does not mean he is like Jesus of Nazareth. And so now we should lastly look at the figure of Shiva. Shiva is quite different from the avatars of Vishnu. Each side will claim Vishnu or Shiva is the top of the top. Neither will declare the other is completely false, though, or that the followers are destined to burn in hell. But with Shiva, we see a throwback to an ancient age. I mentioned earlier the images of what looks like a lord of beasts in yoga posture, Pashupatinath in Sanskrit, from the period of the Indus Valley civilization. Shiva goes way back in time, where many think he is also Rudra, the howler in the mountains mentioned in the Vedas. But beyond that, we can definitely say he has a massive following of millions to this day, and he too has a consort, although unlike the consorts, the wives of Rama and Krishna, Parvati, she of the mountains it means, and Shiva himself, that name means peace or quiescence. His wives threaten to destroy the universe on a number of occasions. In fact, we can say in many ways the story of Shiva is Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So among such stories as this, we have the story of Ganesha, the elephant-headed god. Many wonder, who is that guy? Well, he was formed magically through mantras and through mixing of some dust from the skin of Parvati, and she creates a guardian for her wardrobe, and when this guardian refuses to let anyone enter, even Shiva, a big mistake, Shiva cuts off his head with his peculiar instrument, the trident. All the Hindu gods, like the Greek ones, have peculiar weapons. And he cuts the head off only to find Parvati, his wife, more than furious. She's going to destroy the universe. So Shiva sends all the gods, they're all worried by now, to find a suitable replacement head. An elephant-headed demon comes along, Shiva cuts off his head and sticks it on the little body he had just killed, and there is the origin of his most famous child, Ganesha, who, to this day, Hindus who are devout and will pray to remove obstacles, such as taking exams and the like. So, in many ways, the Hindu gods play roles similar to those of Catholic saints. They have unique jobs that only they do, and you pray to them for particular help in particular instances. And that brings us to maybe the most famous stories of all, and the most ferocious female deity I've yet encountered in my studies, and that would be Kali, she of time, also referencing darkness. And Kali, we're told, emanates from the third eye chakra of Durga. And if we think about it, time destroys all things. And so we're told that on the battlefield with demons, Durga, another goddess, it gets confusing, was battling the demon for 9 days and was unable to defeat their leader Raktabija, red drop or drop of blood. Every time a drop of his blood fell to the earth as she slashed him, more red drop demons emerged from the ground. So how to solve this one? She then emanates from her third eye chakra, just as I might see Dick Cheney or the like. I can see him, but I cannot manifest him from that. But she could. And so she manifests Kali. With a girdle of arms she's cut off, a necklace or garland of heads, and countless other things, among these holding the Creator's God's head in her hands, as after defeating Raktabija by drinking all his blood in one giant gulp, she begins to kill the other gods. What will anyone do? And of course, that's where Shiva comes in. He throws himself between Kali and her marauding destruction, and she's about to kill him when he says, Kali, you could kill me, but you will blink out along with the rest of the universe. So she stops and is mollified, and the universe saved yet again by Shiva calming down his wives. So Shiva's the man for the Shaivas. And in this famous image, we can see Shiva the dancer, the Lord of the dance, dancing out the universe with his one foot on the demon of ignorance, a lamp of fire showing wisdom, with one leg raised high, one hand held up to show he is not bound by the earth, but his planted feet and down-faced palms point to the fact that you can pray to Shiva and you'll get results. As time goes on, by the 9th century or so, we see attempts to merge the Vaishnava and Shaiva traditions into an idea called the Trimurti, or the three forms, where Brahma, the creator god, is deemed a creator, Vishnu is deemed the preserver, and Shiva is styled as the destroyer of the universe at the end of times. Of course, this is an artificial hodgepodge in a sense, and both Shiva and Vishnu have their own sets of myths of beginnings and endings. And so that's very brief, and there's so much more we can always say about all our religions. But that is an overview of Hinduism that runs us through some of the big moments in that religion. Then we can think about modern times in the 20th century, and of course the most famous Hindu, that was Gandhi. Although influenced by Jesus of Nazareth to follow a path of nonviolence, thus he does. And using nonviolent means, he's able eventually to shoo the dread British Empire off the land of India and inaugurate a new era. He did not wish for the two states of Pakistan and India to emerge, but saw Hindus and Muslims all living peacefully together in one united India. Alas, that didn't happen, as it so often does not.